Well, when I started out, my name was Marie Church, my dad's name. And I was brought to California from Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl times. I was born in 1933. And it was weird back then. But I wasn't afraid because I was with my daddy and my mom. So anyway, we came out and we lived at a place called Sunset Camp. And that's where it was tent top buildings, and it was where they called us Okies. The Okies came there and lived there at the beginning of that. And I don't remember a whole lot more, but I remember sitting in that vacant big airplane for a class. And I think it must have been the first grade. And anyway, we lived there, and my dad went to work. I forget what he started right away with, but we lived in Arvin later, and then later DiGiorgio Farms. And well, there was a lot of things going on back in those days. It was just Depression days, and that's the things I think of when I look back. And eventually, DiGiorgio Farms was built, and we lived on DiGiorgio Farms. And my dad worked there for, 30 years? Over 30 years. And anyway, I went to a school in Arvin. We lived in Arvin at first for a while. And I went to Arvin, I think it was first grade and part of second. And then we would... when we went to DiGiorgio, I went to a school called Rock Pile School. And it was way out in the country. And it was a neat school. It was a pretty school. And we lived about a mile away. I could walk to school. My mom, of course, got TB. And she and... my dad's sister, Mary, she and my mom were in Keene Sanatorium. And, oh gosh, it was rough then. I remember us kids living on DiGiorgio, and we were kind of wild because it was my older brother, Earl. He was quite a bit older than me. And then there was me, and then my mother... It happened, she got pregnant, and she had TB, and he was born. Tommy was born. And she was in Frizzy's maternity home in Bakersfield. My dad worked, he always had something to say something funny to say. And, he had a good attitude. But boy, you better mind him. Mm-hmm. But because I was so stubborn, I know he told me, do not step. He had burned some leaves he had raked around in the yard, and he had burned them, and he says, do not step on that. Because I was barefooted running around. Well, of course, I stepped on it and burned myself. That's you. You may not believe this, but that Rancho Theater was there when I was a little kid. And we were at the movies, Daddy and my mom. And, of course, he was holding me. back in the lodges, and I told him I had to go to the bathroom. And he was watching the movie, and he didn't want to go yet. And I peed on him. Oh, man, did I get in trouble. Well, I was just a little kid. You know, I wasn't, I think I was around four or 4.5 in that area. Because he was still carrying me around, and in the movie, he took me in there. And he was a foreman out at Digergio Farms when they built, they built a packing shed, and they had houses for people to live on that ranch. And it was good living. And I started working in the packing shed when I was like 15, but we could only work 40 hours. And I was happy to get to work, and make some money. It was a big fenced-in area, and you had to go through a gate and, show your ID to get in there and work in the shed. And there was a hamburger stand in the back part. And they had real good hamburgers. And I worked through grapes, and I worked in the field when I was 15. They called us the diaper crew. And, we were happy to get to work and make money. And did that, and then later worked in the shed, but only 40 hours a week. And they built swimming pools for us. There was 2 different ones. There was one out by Camp 8, and there was one near where we lived on the ranch. And we spent a lot of time in that pool. It was 2 carloads, and one was kind of like a truck bed, and that was my dad's sister and her husband, and my cousins. And we all traveled together. And, oh, yeah, I remember all that. But people had to eat, and they had to... I remember my mom could make fried potatoes and stuff like that on that fire. But we were just glad to get something to eat, My mother had died. She and my dad's sister both died. My mother died, and then Aunt Mary died too the next year, and lost both of them. And so my dad, of course, he was single, and he was still young. But I remember crying and crying and crying for my mom. My dad trying to soothe me, and I don't know, I just felt lost, between 5 and 6 years old. My dad was the crew pusher for that group, and it was women, and her name was Luella Maud Freiberger. He would take her ladder and move it for her, and, he liked her. So that's how that got going. She was living with the preacher in Arvin, preacher's family. And so that's how they met, and they got married, and she was my stepmother. And I was happy to have a mother. I worked at 15, and then, later on, I worked at the phone, the old-fashioned phone in Arvin, and got better jobs. I did work at the drugstore when behind the counter. They had a soda fountain and everything, and it was Dick Miller's drugstore. I worked that later, and I still went to Kern County Union High School, and that's how I met Frank, and he was absolutely the love of my life. my girlfriends, I had two girlfriends that we would sit under this big big tree in the elm grove, and we didn't like the cafeteria food, so we buy tuna salad sandwiches. They had a sandwich stand too, and we'd go sit under that elm tree, and this guy came by and he walked real cocky, and I told him, I said, "You walk like a peacock," and he just really put on a show. So he came over, and I had my shoes were kicked off. He came over and he started pulling grass and putting my shoe. But anyway, that was the beginning. He got my attention. One of my girlfriend, Lucille, we stayed together most of the time. We were really tight friends. And we went to the rodeo. He took us up in Tehachapi. And that was our first date. He was very respectful of me, and he just made a very good impression on me. He didn't get fresh with me. He just was very polite and very sweet. And who wouldn't fall in love with that? He wanted to join the Navy. And his best friend joined the Marines. But at first we talked about waiting until he got out of the service. Well, that didn't last. We decided we better get married. So we got married. And then we were married when we were married almost 3 years when Tom was born. We got married in Las Vegas. Just the two of us. We went to Las Vegas and got married, and we had his mom's car, and we got to go. We went to Death Valley, and we just prowled around for a while. Then he went on a seaplane tender, and he went all the way to like Borneo, and I didn't see him for 7 months. So it was that type of thing, and then we did live in Alameda for a while. When he got out, I think he was still in there while of that. They had that nickel snatcher to get on the base. Remember, he put a nickel in the... You don't remember, but I do. Of course, he was gone 7 months when Tom was a baby. So I had him all to myself. But I had a lot of help with Grandma Royal. We were close-knit, and that's Frank's mom. And she always treated me like her own daughter. We did a lot of things together, too. And we took Tom places. And of course, when Carl was little, I had him all by myself. Spoiled him. We spoiled him. Tom and I both spoiled him. But he says they fought. Well, brothers fight. Well, Carl was born, after Frank passed. He held him. I put him in his arms in the hospital, and then he just broke into it. Looked like he just, But we had to bring him through the window. We had to lift him through the window. I was in there, but I brought him over, and he did. But then, he just doubled over, and that was his. He went into a coma. And that was that. So Carl never really had a dad. And just had me. I went back to school. I went to night school at first to kind of took some high school subjects that would help me with the nursing program. And I did that, and then I went back to nurses school. Now, it was Bakersfield High School, but it was a full-time job. And you have a certain amount of book work for a few months, and then you go in and you're wearing a uniform, you're working at Kern Medical, and you go through all that to get your nurse's license. And that's what I did. I did private nursing, and I didn't like it because it was too hard to get the money out of people to pay you. And so I decided to go ahead and get a job, and I got a job in a nursing home as afternoon nurse. And eventually I married Walt. Oh, I know. Yeah. He rescued me one time. A couple of the girls that I worked with, we went to the pump room after work. And this guy was really drunk, and he wanted me to dance with him, and I didn't want to. And Walt rescued me. He came home by and grabbed my arm, and he said, "She's with me." So that guy wouldn't bother me. So that's how we met. We started dating, and eventually got married. And I didn't know it was going to happen, but I also got 3 stepsons. Mark and Wally and Andy. And Avon, of course, was the oldest, but she lived in New Zealand. She had married a guy that he was from Boston, but she married him and lived there, went to New Zealand and lived. He was a mechanical genius, absolutely. Yeah, he did a lot of famous things. He put the clock back in the Fox Theater, and believe you me, that place was closed for years. The electricity was clipped all the way down into the carpet. They had to restring that. And then later on, he did the Bill clock. He was really a mechanical genius. He was really smart about that. Oh, well, a clock shop. It's a lot of noise, I'll tell you. It just gets to be part of your atmosphere there. Tick-tocking. And his dad gave us a clock for a present for when we got married. And he just got into it. And we'd go to clock marts, and we had a lot of fun with it. And he liked to take care of them and work on them. And he did. And he had the clock in the tower at the Fox going, too. He had helpers. He worked in a rental metal building. It was a mess. So, actually, I hocked my house, and we bought the metal building, and he put the building together. And that building's still there. And we were in there for quite a while. when we finally got straightened out, got back in church, and everything was great. He wasn't afraid of anything. He would, he was a very big guy. He was about my height, and, he put on weight, but, of course I fed him good. But he was strong, very strong. And he was all hardener repairs, he wasn't afraid to do. And he ruined himself, his insides. But he eventually died with cancer. I eventually worked at the shop and did the books. And, the invoices and all that stuff. And we got along fine there. Once we got back in church. And he did a lot of good works. He built a merry-go-round for the church. He built, you wouldn't believe the stuff he did there. Merry-go-round and all kinds of things for the kids. And they made a sand play area, sand, and he built that merry-go-round and put it there. And just all kinds of neat toys. We went down by the park, by the river, and they had those little horse things you could sit on. He put some of those in there. He did the merry-go-round, and he filled that all full of sand. And that thing was a big old merry-go-round, and the kids loved it. But he was really good at that kind of stuff. Well, we got involved in that and joined the Model T group. It was just a lot of fun. We went on trips. I had good tours all over the U.S. We went all the way to where you cross the Red River. We actually did a trip to New Zealand to see. We spent almost a month there with his daughter. We took a train ride to Greymouth, it's called, and it's on the ocean. And it's very dreary, but we went through 15 tunnels. It was interesting, though. We did a lot of tours and.
Did you have a favorite one?
I think when we first went to the Rio Grande one. Oh, Colorado, yeah. We did several of those. It's beautiful, beautiful country. So we did that. We got to do a lot of traveling. Yes, I am Marie Koch, and I'm 87 years old.